And welcome back, everyone, to Pokemon Team Creation Series. From Nazareth Hussein, we have the question of what is Homer Simpson's Pokemon team? A fun character to make a team for. Let's just get right into it. Homer, among many other things, is known for his big appetite, love of donuts, his lack of intelligence, working at the nuclear power plant, being a family man overall, and he has some massive laziness. So I think as a starter, Snorlax has to be it. Massive appetite, big bulk, a guy who likes to sleep, and generally it's not. I mean, let me rephrase it this way: Homer himself isn't inherently like just lazy, but he's got a gut. He would rather not be doing stuff as opposed to doing stuff, but he can also be quite active when he wants to be. So right out the gate. But they also, the Simpsons, have a family dog, Santa's little helper. Now, there is no Greyhound Pokemon at this time, but what we do have is Bolthound, which, look, I've always tried to figure out what Bolthound is in terms of like a dog breed. We know, not Corgi, Yamper. We know Yamper is a Corgi. Straight out, Yamper's a Corgi. But Bolton, never understood quite. He's a racing dog of some kind. Kind of has a bit of a Greyhound vibe. Also a bit of a lab vibe, friendly dog vibe. But same as little helper, I think it makes sense. But let's not mince words. One of Homer's favorite foods is donuts. And there is, close enough, a donut Pokemon in Fido. Now, to be fair, it's more dough than donut. And you might be thinking, well, a DOWH Hound. Well, DOWH Hound, when you actually look at it, is actually more like pastries as a whole, not specifically donuts. Whereas Fido, admittedly, that looks more like a bagel than a donut, is a Pokemon of more of a donut-like variety. At least in terms of shape. Now we have a one Mon on the team that I kind of use as a filter, but there is some precedent for it because Homer is notoriously not a very intelligent guy. Now, there have been times where his intelligence has actually been on display, but there have been circumstances that allowed that to happen. For example, there was a circumstance where I think he had like a Lego or something stuck in his brain or nose or something like that, and when they removed it, it actually doubled his intelligence. But because there is some latent potential, just not a very Homer just generally doesn't apply himself. I felt that a Pokemon that works well there is Slowbro. A powerful Pokemon, not a bright Pokemon, but not actually stupid Pokemon either. It is just naturally slow, but its psychic abilities are insanely powerful. So, and it's a bulky Mon too, so that works well with Homer. Then I wanted a Mon that represented his job working at the nuclear power plant. And believe it or not, there is a Pokemon that would work with that. Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing actually eats poison gas. It doesn't spew it. And it purifies it, making it a poison fairy type. It also looks like, smokestacks like you'd get at the plant. So, for a guy who would work around this kind of environment, this actually makes a lot of sense to me. Last but not least, his ace Pokemon, the big, powerful, lazy guy himself, Slacking. This, to me, I think works because, again, Homer is kind of lazy, but Homer has demonstrated that he can actually throw hands, do what he needs to do to, duke it out with people. So I think that works for, an ace, but the True Hunt ability really holds it back. Should know that even if I did evolve Fido, I don't think the results here would be big different. But more to the point, this means that this team is weak, really only three main types. Fighting for obviously your two normal types, ground for your poisoned and your electric type because Weezing does not have levitate, and steel for, again, your poison fairy type, but also for your, actually, I wrote steel. What's the other one here on the team? Oh, because you have another fairy, duh. On the flip side, though, you do have a ×2 strength against dragon, which is two fairy types, a ×2 strength against rock with your water type and your, wait, why did I write, oh no, sorry, I wrote fighting, but it looked like an R. Fighting with your two fairy types, and a ×2 strength against dark, which are two fairy types. The problem when you have multiple normal types on a team that don't have any sort of double typing is the obvious, they're not really all there. You're going to have a lot of weaknesses to fight. But now we get really to the main point here. And the main point because I'm learning to shorten these videos down quite a bit. Notice we're barely past 5 minutes. The main problem here is this. You can't become champion with any of these. Hell, you can't even get past the first gym in Hoenn, in Sinnoh, in Unova, and in Paldea with these teams. You just can't. Even though you'll have a fully evolved Snorlax, its move pool just doesn't allow for it to really do much against rock types at all. You're up against bugs in Paldea, and that freaking Nimble has double kick on it, which is directly you're weak to, which is what you're directly weak to. Freaking Unova in both games, both gym leaders have multiple Pokemon, so that's problematic. And Lick doesn't work on normal Pokemon, which is one of the moves that Snorlax learns. So against the Lilip or against Sharon, you're kind of boned. I think the only other move you have is Pound. So yeah, so right out the gate, you can't become champion there at all. Now you can get past the first gyms in Kanto, Johto, Galar, and Kalos, but you're immediately stopped in Kalos at Karina. Snorlax goes down immediately. Boltund can do a little work against Hawlucha, but only a little. Hawlucha even actually outspeeds the Boltund, and Boltund has speed, so that's problematic. And Fido being fairy doesn't really matter because it's so weak compared to all those other mons. So even if you got past Karina, you would not get past Ramos because grasses resists electric, and you still wouldn't have a Slowbro at that point. And even then, it'd still be weak to grass. So even if you did get past Karina, you'd stopped at Ramos. In Galar, that one was a little bit more difficult. You can get past Milo, definitely. And you shouldn't actually have any problem with Nessa. You probably go even with Kabu. But it's when you get to B and Alistair that the big problems show up. Once again, you do not have a fully evolved Slowbro no matter who you're going up against. So that Slowpoke is just dead weight. The Fido is much as used as it can be resisting fighting moves against B is not going to do much. So the only mon you're going to really have that can do anything is Boltund, and that thing can't carry an entire fight against either of those teams. So unfortunately, you're just done there. And in Kanto and Johto, you actually can make it all the way to someone like Koga, for example. And Slowbro would be fully evolved at that point. So you should be able to handle Koga, but he would still be difficult. After that, you're dealing with Sabrina, which would be problematic. Again, with Truant, you're just going to be struggling. And that's the biggest problem you have here, is you're going to be struggling. Honestly, you should be, but you could still get through Blaine. You'd struggle with Sabrina pretty hard, but you have enough resistances, or at the very minimum, you go neutral with Psyche with like Slowbro, that you could do it. Plus, there's some of these guys can naturally learn dark moves, like Slacking, I know can learn Feint Attack as a Vigoroth, if I'm not mistaken, or Crunch or Bite. I know Boltund can learn Bite and Crunch as well. Blaine, you're kind of just neutral too, with one advantage. You're not really all that good against Giovanni, even with having a water type on the team. They all outspeed Slowbro, so Slowbro's probably going down hard. And then even if you do get to the league, Lorelei, you're going to struggle hard against Lorelei from the get. Then Bruno literally has type advantage over two of your biggest hitters. Slowbro, yes, has psychic capabilities, but it's still slow as hell. And if I'm not mistaken, that Hitmonchan might have Thunder Punch on it, so that's not good. Even if you get past that, you got to deal with Agatha, who's got Ghost type Mon on the team, which are going to take care of at least your Slowbro, no problem. And then you're going to be duking it out tooth and nail. Plus, adding Poison on there doesn't help. And then you have two Mon that are good against Dragon, but really the only one that's actually doing anything is Weezing. And even it's still got to also deal with Aerodactyl and Gyarados. And then you got to deal with Blue, who starts out with Pidgeot. Sure, you can just tank some hits, maybe take it down before you have to use Boltund. Brings out Alakazam, you don't really have a good answer, so Snorlax is probably going down. If you do still have Dark type moves on Boltund, you could do that, but Alakazam outspeeds Boltund too. So if it doesn't go down, you manage to take down the Alakazam. He then brings out Rhydon. You could bring out Slowbro. Rhydon's getting a hit, and Slowbro might take it down. But then he's got either Executor or Venusaur, so that's taking down the Slowbro. Yeah, you can't be champion of Kanto. But that is the region where you probably do stand the best shot. Because, honestly, Johto is kind of a no-go. Johto, Fogner right out the gate, you're going to struggle. Granted, you actually might be able to beat him, but it'd be difficult. Again, Lick doesn't work on them because they're both normal type mod as well. Then you go into Bugsy. You actually probably handle Bugsy fine. But then Milk Tank with Whitney and plus Clefairy, not good. And then that's not even factoring Morty into the equation, which you're still in no shape to be fighting. Like, I honestly don't think you get past Morty. Even if you could get past all the gyms in all the regions, you're still no good against the champions of these regions. Yes, you have 2 fairy types against Lance and Johto, but he's got 3 Dragonites. And he's got other things besides dragon moves on those things. Plus Gyarados, Charizard, and Aerodactyl. And Hoenn, he's got, it's a freaking steel, I was about to say a different word. It's a steel rock team. You're no good against that team whatsoever. Cynthia, too much versatility. Once again, Snorlax can't do a damn thing against that Spiritomb. And that Spiritomb's kind of clear a lot of this team. Well, what about Alder or Iris? Iris is a no-go too. Yes, again, you have some fairy for the Hydreigon and some for dragons, but they're not that good of fairies comparatively. And Alder's Selgor alone outspeeds everything on this team. So it's going to take down Slowbro, no problem. It's going to hit hard. Then you don't have an answer for Excavalier either, whose only weakness is fire. And that's just those 2. You also don't have a good answer for Volcarona either. And then if you go into Diantha and Kalos, she starts out with Hawlucha, which means Snorlax goes down quick. Sure, you go into Bolttown, but she's already going to have Swords Dance at that point. And she's going to hit again. If that thing doesn't go down and manages to take the Bolttown down, then you got to deal with freaking Tyrantrum, which, good luck. I mean, it's not going to go for Dragon Wish. It's going to go for probably a Head Smash. Then you might be able to get the win off with Galarian Weezing, but then after that, she's going to bring in Auroras, which you now don't have a good answer for, except for maybe Slowbro. And then she's got Goodra, which at that point, Galarian Weezing or Fido are already gone. It's just a no good. Then you go into Galar, Leon's team Leon's team decimates you, just decimates you. First off, once again, you don't have a good answer for his Ghost type in Aegislash, let alone his Dragapult. It's just, The only one where you even have a monochrome of a chance is Geeta, and that's just because her team is bad. Snorlax can tank a Pather fine. She then goes into Veluza. You should be able to tank it fine. Snorlax can actually clear a decent chunk of that team, though Go-Goat's Horn Leech could be problematic. So assuming that Go-Goat does take down your Snorlax, then you would probably want to go into Galarian Weezing with a poison move. Then he brings out King Gambit, and for the first time, you don't have a good answer for him. You don't even have a fighting move. I don't think any of these guys, except maybe. No, you can't naturally. You have to teach Slack off things like Brick Break. So once King Gambit comes out and that Supreme Overlord ability happens, you are SNL, or SOL. So yeah, no, Homer's team is not good for any playthrough. But to be fair, it's kind of not really designed to be. It's just, none of these teams are ever designed to be good for a playthrough. They're just designed to match the person I'm talking about. Either way, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.